Cool. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Nathaniel Cowan Show. I have my friend Finn on the podcast. Finn, say hey.
Hey,
Cool. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to talk. This is the my first guest on the show. Finn, I'm just going to ask you to introduce yourself.
yeah, well, so my actual name is Andrew, but I do go by Finn. I've gone by Finn for quite a while, and I am I am a I'm kind of like in the middle of like the conservative and liberal party. So I'm not exactly too conservative. I'm not exactly too liberal. So kind of like in the middle. Like I see both aspects, and I kind of just like follow what I think is right. From my perspective. I'm also a art teacher. I just love art. I love creating. I love making. I love just thinking of really cool ideas and executing them. And I'm currently a student as well. So got a lot of stuff going on, but I'm here to help out as much as I can, answer any kind of questions. I just want to say I'm not the voice for so and said parties or anything. This is literally just my individual opinion about things as a common person, just here. So
That's cool. And yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that you're moderate. Have you heard about the what happened with Crackle Barrel in the last couple of days?
didn't they go through like a rebranding or something on their logo?
Yeah, they went through this rebranding where they basically took out the old man and they've basically gone woke and they've lost $98 million dollars in their stock valuation. How do you feel about that?
I mean, to be honest, that kind of reminds me of like that syrup company that did the same thing, like Aunt Jamalaya or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, like there is like this huge controversy where basically it's like they're taking away um like the essence of like a tradition and just like the idea and just kind of like stamping it as something just blank and normal. And I feel like a lot of companies are doing that because maybe they're just trying to like branch out or spread out from like a from one idea to another. But I feel like, and just kind of going back like to the syrup topic, like when you rebrand something like that, Aunt Jemima syrup, like what a lot of people don't know is that that was like she made that. Like it had nothing to do with like the other controversies. It was literally like her idea, her brand, she made it, and then they took that from her, and then they just like rebranded it to just be more of a generalized. And I feel like they're doing the same thing for Cracker Barrel. Like they're rebranding into something else. However, I don't know the full story on Cracker Barrel, so if it is tied to racism or anything in that nature, that's a different coverage. But as of right now, I feel like just it's just become like it's become like a common practice, and it's kind of scary, I guess. So.
yeah. Well, it's like when we grew up, we're still young, but when we were kids, companies like McDonald's, Dairy Queen, all these places, they were like family oriented, and it was fine for like to have your mascot characters be on the box and everything. But nowadays it's like the buildings are different. They're designed for adults, not kids. And everything's this new minimalistic look. And I'm a conservative. I know you and I don't agree on everything, but I do think there is something wrong with taking out the nostalgia of a company just because somebody complained about identity politics. What do you think about that?
Uh, well, I mean, yeah, no, I agree. I feel like as like a kid, things were more like vibrant and like colorful and just like friendly. And I feel like that really captivated like a generation or like it just kind of kept a whole bunch of people's childhood in that specific moment. But like as time progressed, things change, and then things just kind of like you said, become more minimal. And I just feel like there has to be a reason why they're doing this. My opinion is that they're doing this because they're trying to rebrand or they're trying to make it grow. Usually when they make something simplistic, and this is just kind of like in my graphic designer eye because I did like art in college. But when you brand something into something simple and not specific, that means that you're about to go into like different branches or different routes because you want the brand to be so generic that it could be sold in any kind of uh, location or genre rather than just like, you know, Aunt Jemima with like her syrup.
Yeah, and another company like that was Land O'Lakes. I don't know if you remember when they took the rebranding there, and there was a huge backlash.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and all these companies, they're all going woke. What do you think it when what do you think woke is? That's a good question to ask some viewers. We hear that all the time nowadays, and some people don't even know what it's about.
Well, in my opinion, and again, I could be wrong. These are all just my own perspectives and thoughts. But being woke is trying to change something uh, that does not fit or align with an opposing opinion's values or traditions. So when you go woke, you basically are trying to change that to fit your own needs and specifics. I feel like I generalize that pretty well right now. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's not a bad definition. In modern day, it's like the word kind of gets thrown around. And so, and conservative, and I'm conservative, but conservatives really do butcher the word, and it gets labeled as everything that's not conservative. But so I don't think that's a bad definition for what it is today. What do you think about Disney going woke?
I mean, to be honest, they're kind of okay, so I actually used to work at Disney. I used to work there for like a year as an intern, and I go to Disney like every year just to, like for fun and memories and whatnot. But I feel like ever since what was it? Wish, that movie Wish. Ever since that movie Wish came out, the Disney classics or the animation style of the Disney classics have just been kind of going downhill, and they've been trying to reach out to the masses or like the woke masses because I think they're thinking that their generalized population is in the woke media and in the woke families versus the more conservative and moderate because America is becoming more said woke or was. I'm still not really sure because I haven't really heard anything too big on the woke media in this past year, but ever since Trump has been elected, I feel like it's been kind of dwindling down because of the DEI cancellations, with like in the colleges or the like he's just basically just pulling the plug on a lot of things. So I feel like just the generalization of the woke status has been dwindling down. But Wish came out in 2003, I believe. So they've been kind of like changing back. I feel like Disney is switching back to its roots as of late. But there was a time when they were just kind of like, oh, we're just going to throw in these couples that these queer couples just for the sake of it. Um, and again, I feel like they were just doing that just to kind of like generalize to the masses, but that kind of sends like a signal to the other side of families that are like, hey, like, why are we doing this? This is like not what I want my kids watching. But then the other families are like, but I want my kids to watch it because that's what we identify as. And yeah,
Yeah, and it's like, and that raises a really good question. Is that about what animation companies should do. I know a lot of conservatives don't want to be lectured, and a lot of moderates don't want to be lectured either. They kind of just want to watch the film for their own entertainment. I don't see anything wrong with that. Um, I think if what do you see happening in the field of animation going forward?
Well, if I were to go to like specifically Disney, I feel like they've been getting back on track with like Marvel, specifically just like, like the Doctor Doom that's coming out, the X-Men 23, like there's just a bunch of like fan service stuff that I feel like that they've been doing right. I've been a real fan of Disney as of late. And like the last thing that I liked from Disney was probably like Moana 2, but I guess just like animation styles. If you if you like actually pay attention and like look at what is being shown in like Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Disney, all like the main media masses, they've cut all of the individualized shows that actually made a significant stance in uh, cartoon culture, and they've sold them out in off-brand places, or just brands that will basically take them in, like HBO Max, you know, will are taking them in to kind of like help them continue, or at least have like a place for them to stay. Like, I'm not sure if you're like aware of this, but HBO Max or Max, they took Cartoon Network shows. So all like the specialized cartoon shows that we watched as a kid and that were continued, like really popular ones, they took them in. Disney has Disney, right? But I mean, I just feel like the animation style has just been just regenerated garbo or garbage, like kind of like the simplicity with like the McDonald's rebranding or the Cracker Barrel rebranding. Like it's just simple, quick, goes to, whatever, but it doesn't really have any meaning or purpose. And I will always call out specifically Teen Titans Go because I hate that show. Um, how did they do that to Teen Titans? They didn't even finish the sixth season. I'm still mad about that. But that's like
Yeah,
like what I mean. Like,
that show was really cool when we were kids.
yeah, that's what I'm
Regular Teen
saying.
Titans.
The
Um,
Teen Titans, and that's like that's a good example of what I mean by like shows that had a flair and they were really good, but they decided to rebrand it into something generic, like Teen Titans Go, which Teen Titans Go fits the woke culture.
mhm. And I think you're right. I think there's been a huge push for this minimalistic slop all throughout our culture. And it's not just in film, you can see that everywhere. And it, I, th- the whole point about minimalism is to have a small amount of something. But when every single company across the country is minimalist, then that's now the mainstream option. And I don't think it was ever really meant to be mainstream. Um, what do you think about small business? Do you see animation happening in small companies starting with animation?
I mean, just like from my own experience, a lot of small animation companies like in Japan, China, Canada, whatever, they only maybe only have like 15 to 20 like animators, and they work on like big shows. Uh, so I feel like it's doable, but eventually, if the show gets big enough and it's like a consistent schedule that they want to push every single week, it's going to have to either be shared or bought out by a bigger company to at least have a decent plot and decent animation and all these other things. So I guess basically what I'm saying is like you kind of don't really have, if you're trying to start like an animation company, you either have to just like create something that's gonna really capture somebody's attention and then hope that it gets sold by the masses, or not sold, but at least shared if you want it to be a consistent thing. The only other shows that I know that are not consistent but are still, sorry, that are really good but not as consistent, are like webtoons that you would find on YouTube and stuff.
Yeah. So it's and that's true with a lot of companies is that they start out small and because of scale they get bought out by large companies. Now, there have been advances in new technology. I mean, new types of software like Blender have made it possible for small businesses to make small short films. What do you think? Do you think that in some way that this field is being democratized in the country?
Like, what do you mean democratized? Like,
In a lot of companies, what happens is that once a technology has been basically mass produced, the technology is democratized across the country and everyone gets to use it. Like there
mhm.
was used to be one smartphone and now everyone's got one. Even babies have. So how do you see and we have more technology in our pocket than was used on for the Apollo 11. So how do you see the new advances in technology affecting the film industry?
I mean, I feel like really anyone can, if they have the idea, they can create it, with like the advances such as like TikTok, Instagram, like there's even or even like as you mentioned, like Blender, but there's also something else called like Toon Boom, which Family Guy is actually made off of. It's just like very simple graphics. If you ever just like watch Family Guy, they have like monotone colors. Like they only have like a certain scale of colors that they use in each scene, and it's not really ever like in depth or detailed. That's because it's used through a just a very simple animation program, and that's available to a lot of people, and it's free. And I think if people just knew like the resources, a lot more people would be doing it. And as like a teacher, like I'm like an art teacher, I'm gonna try to like show people that. So I mean, really, like it's everywhere. You kind of just have to just be open to learn about it.
Yeah, that's a good point about open to learn. You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I remember back when and I was in college, people taught us a lot about how to use Adobe products. Anyone has access to Adobe, but how many people know it? Or how many people
Yeah,
even know to really work a spreadsheet? So it's like we have all access to all this technology, and yet we just don't have, most people don't have the head knowledge. And that's
yeah.
another thing too about the advances in technology. And I'm gonna jump to another subject with things like having new smartphones. A lot of people are thinking that there's going to be a new great awakening is is on the brink here in America. Where do you see the country having a new spiritual revival?
Well, it depends like what you mean by like spiritual. Like what exactly do you mean exactly? Like what
For
in
Christian?
what
Well,
sense?
I'm
Christian.
I'm a
Okay.
conservative Christian. So when I talk
Right, right.
about spiritual revival, I'm talking about the great awakenings. We've
Right,
had
right.
four, I believe four of them at this point here in the country. For the fourth one being controversial. That was a lot of what Billy Graham was doing. But people are thinking that we're on the brink of a fifth great awakening. What do you think about, and when it comes to Christ and the church, how do you see what there's a huge need for it, specifically with Gen Z. There's a big surge of Gen Z men and women going back to church, more than we've seen basically in the Gen Z or the millennials. How do you see technology helping the Great Awakening?
I mean, technology specifically, I feel like I mean honestly, I feel like unless we have people that are distinctively going out trying to spread the word and help people understand about like the gospel, it's going to be very difficult to get uh I guess people to learn discernment, to learn what is right, what is wrong, and just overall having the faith in in something that they may or may not understand or believe. So I feel like the only way for like just people to understand that certain things are like not really the way that that it's perceived is if a lot more of the controversies and conflicts that have been happening in America in the past year keeps happening. And I feel like that's the greatest kind of discernment, without really like saying it. And I'm not sure if you know what I mean. I'm not sure if you want me to
Can
talk
you
about that.
elaborate a little bit? Yeah,
Okay,
that would
yeah.
be good.
All right. So I guess I'll just start with like Epstein, right?
Okay.
So, like the whole Epstein list kind of got into light a while back. People were talking about it, whatever, and then names were dropped, and then those names ended up being people that have recently gotten like attention in the worst light. We'll say P. Diddy, we'll say Dan Schneider, you know, and then just recently, they're talking about like Beyonce and Jay-Z. So like I
Mhm.
feel like when people kind of just like understand what goes on in the background about like their idols, they'll kind of realize like, wow, like why do I worship these people that have nothing to do with my life? They just want us to like blindly follow them. And I actually had a really interesting conversation yesterday. I have a little sister and she's like 12, and she was watching this show or this movie called K-pop Demon Hunters. Have you heard of that?
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
So it's basically like the new Frozen. Like, like when Frozen was super popular, it came out, everyone was singing the song, and they're like became like a whole thing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So the show or this movie called K-pop Demon Hunters, it's basically just about like these K-pop idols that are like they hunt demons, but one of the spoiler alert, but one of the idols is also a demon. So then they have to just kind of like, they eventually there's a conflict where they have to either fight each other or learn to love each other or whatever, but they end up fighting like the demons and whatever. But the main point of like what I'm trying to say is like there's a part in the movie where there are like these demonic entities and idols that were leading crowds by the masses, and they were literally being like mind controlled into like following them. And one of the characters was just like trying to fight it, and then something like whispered in their ear, and they ended up just following the crowd. And then the other two were like, or the other one was like, oh, like, what are you doing? And then, they got whispered in the ear and they ended up following the crowd too. And I was telling my sister, I was like, hey, like, this is when you have to be able to use your discernment and not just follow the crowd. So when you see things that are not of God, then um, it may seem fine in your eyes, but in actuality, you're being led astray and you're being led away from God. So one of the things to do and just to be aware of is just to have your eyes open, listen to the lyrics, and actually know where it's coming from. And a lot of like the music and movies and nowadays are very, very like demonic. Like they're meant to
Hmm.
steer you away from God. And I feel like that's really scary, especially with like the younger generation, because if they don't know God, they're just gonna like be like, oh, this is cool or whatever. And I feel like that's why it's kind of scary, and that's why I'm like um, not sure if everyone's gonna understand spiritual awakening if they are still asleep. Sorry, that was like a very
Yeah.
like long explanation, but I'm just trying to like explain it my point of view.
Yeah, I don't know, like I get it. Many people in Gen Z never even learned what God was. And like, unless basically your parents went to church, most people didn't probably have very little to no knowledge of Jesus or any of that. Um, as far as, and we're running out of time, so I'm gonna get to the next question. Um, as far as like making the spiritual awakening, it's going to require a large amount of people who are in church pushing pushing the faith and trying to get as many people involved in church knowledge. It's going to be have to be a huge info dump for a bit. Um, there is something that we also have in church that we haven't discussed about, which is dating. Have you heard that there's about half of the women, like from anywhere around in their 30s, are now going to be single and without and childless by 2030?
I know a lot of women that are single, but yeah,
Yeah, it's estimated. I think it's like 45%. It's like around there going to be single and childless at 30.
yeah.
This is the first time in history we have more single and childless women than we do families married with kids. So I know there's a lot of women that I know, probably that are looking for husbands and everything. How do you see how do you see in church? That's very common in church. How do you see what do you see dating being like in the next couple of years?
Well, it's definitely going down the this is kind of like what I meant by like discernment. Like if you're not looking, like if you don't already know like what to look for, um, these people are just gonna end up in the same cycle where like hookup culture is a thing, where you just date and then leave and then you just keep doing it, or use other people for, this and that. But I feel like hookup culture is the reason why a lot of people are single, because they are only interested in the attraction side of
Yeah.
things, and then like once they're kind of like, oh, I got my fill, they just keep going to the next person, and then that pretty much creates like an empty void for that person, and they don't understand that love is not just that. Like it's also just understanding the person, getting to know them, loving them. But I feel like that's not taught. It's not something that it just automatically comes. Like you kind of have to know to look for it. And I feel like a lot of these people just don't know where, how to look for it. So they end up in this vicious cycle where they just keep doing it over and over again. And I think that's why people are still single and why they're doing this and that is because they don't love themselves or they don't know how to. And it's very
Yeah.
sad. So
Well, it's like in today's world, we have a lot of options. So it's like we have more options to find for a spouse than I think anyone has ever had in the history of mankind. The biggest problem, and I know Jordan Peterson was talking about it, is that many people don't know what they want. And it's kind of hard to form a decision when you have everyone giving you, when you have all these millions of choices. If there was something you could tell young women who are looking for a husband, what do you think? What would it be?
if you were looking like for a serious relationship with somebody and you want to make that commitment to somebody, then I would just say uh, focus on what you want in life and find someone that can at least somewhat fill that. It doesn't have to be like 100%, but even if you meet them halfway, you could still work with that person, um, because you are the other half of them, right? So if that person's only 50% of like what you like, you could help that person fill the other gap, or the other 50% into you, because you don't want to just completely control somebody, right? Like with your thoughts and feelings. Like the whole point of a relationship is to grow each other. So find someone that you can share some things with, and then they will do the same with you. And then in turn, like you will both become a whole person. Um, so just don't be looking for faults automatically. Date as much as you can, but also don't don't just hook up just to hook up because a lot of men will take advantage of that. Same with women, you know, like just find someone if you like them, cool, try it out. If it works, cool. If it doesn't, then you know what to do. So
That's great. And for all the women listening, there's like a lot of red pill men that hate women. We're not like that. Here at the Yellow Pill, we love women and we're just trying to help them out. But that's it for our show. Do you have any final words, Ben?
I mean we covered like a lot of topics, but I guess all I can really say is just like it's okay to not know what you want, but it's not okay to let other people think for you or to not go after what you want.
It's cool. I'm going to hang in and tune out. For everyone watching, I'll just see. Thank you for watching the Yellow Pill, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.